Thanks. If you're traveling over the Memorial Day weekend, you'll want to make sure you give yourself plenty of travel time. That's because AAA says nearly 43 million Americans will travel 50 miles or more from Thursday through next Monday, May 27th. That's an additional 1.5 million travelers from last year. The overwhelming majority, 37.6 million of them, will drive, a record for the holiday, despite higher gasoline prices. And they report 3.25 travelers will fly. I think that number I think I might have gotten it wrong. Anyway, 1.5 million more people will travel compared to last year. That's a lot. 43 million Americans will travel 50 miles or more, 1.5 million compared to last year. I mean, these numbers are astronomical. And here to talk to us about what travelers can expect is Robert Sinclair, the manager of media relations with AAA Northeast. I mean, I guess it's not really so surprising people want to get out, especially after the spring that we've had, but what's really the worst time to be hitting the roads this weekend?
Well, actually today, from 4:45 p.m. to about 6:45 p.m., that's as the commuters mix with those who are getting an early start on a holiday. I think a lot of people are taking Friday off, and so they're getting an early start and going out and hitting the road, and en masse, they're all getting on the roads. We work with a company called INRIX that tracks vehicles through various electronic systems in the vehicles, and they say that the bad roads in our area will be the Garden State Parkway, the Belt Parkway, east and westbound, I-95, and the Merritt Parkway. So avoid those times.
Yeah, any other suggestions that you would have for folks to how they can beat the rush?
Well, choose a different route perhaps, but you know, on a day-to-day basis in our area now, we're seeing lots of traffic. Generally, I tell folks 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. is the best time to travel. But we've seen an increase in number of vehicles registered in the city of New York and Long Island and Westchester and New Jersey. We've seen a huge increase in number of for-hire vehicles, an additional 52,000 in the last 5 years. So every day the traffic is bad. You throw in a holiday like this, makes it really bad. The one thing we recommend against is trying to travel during the overnight hours. Folks might want to go home. If they do, they want to take a nap for a few hours and then they leave at midnight or 1 o'clock, but that can be dangerous because if you're accustomed to being asleep during those hours, there's a nasty little phenomenon known as microsleep, where you drift off to sleep for a couple seconds, and that's very dangerous.
Yeah, especially if you had a long day of work and then you're heading out there. But let's talk gas prices. You know, like we were saying, despite the price of gas, people are still hitting the road. Well,
we're at 307 in New York City. We've been stuck on 307 for about 10 days now. We're in the 290s in Connecticut, Long Island, and New Jersey. Nationwide, we're 284. Actually, those prices are the same or slightly lower to last week and the week before. We perhaps have stabilized. Usually we see prices peak sometime in June, July, August. That seems to have shifted in the last few years. Prices are actually cheaper than they were last year.
Wow.
Last year was pretty high because the 3 years prior to 2018, we saw very cheap gasoline prices. There was a global glut of crude oil. But since then, the OPEC nations have cut back on production. Russia has joined along with them. They've cut back on production. But there's a major entity that's making up for that lost production, and that's the United States of America. We're seeing a lot of oil coming out of the Permian Basin in northwest Texas and the Bakken area and the Dakotas. So the United States, depending on what day it is actually the #1 producer of crude oil in the world, often outstripping Saudi Arabia.
Well, I will be hitting the road this weekend, so thanks for being here to give us some advice.
You're welcome. If you're on the way home Monday, try and leave before 6 p.m. 6 p.m. to midnight is when it gets really tough.
I got to work Sunday, so I'll be heading home early. Anyway, always great to see you, Robert.
Good to see you.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Memorial Day weekend is the start of summer beach season, and today a warning about jellyfish.